I'm going to make a Sudoku game in Java, but I'm going to convert it to JavaScript using the GWT toolkit from Google. That means it'll be an online game and it will run client-side on a web browser. If you watch to the end of the video, I'll give you a link where you can play this game. And if you're not sure how Sudoku works, I'll give you a quick introduction now. So in Sudoku, we start with a grid of 9 squares. Each square in that grid is then divided into 9 smaller squares. We're given a bunch of numbers to start with, and the aim of the puzzle is to fill in the numbers from 1 to 9 in such a way that each row, each column and each 3x3 box contains all of the numbers from 1 to 9. For example, if we look at the number 8 on the right side of the puzzle, this 8 is the only one allowed in this column, and this 8 is the only one allowed in this column. So the only place that we could put an 8 in this box is here. The same thing is going on here with these two 8s. The only place for an 8 in this box is here. We can continue like this, but if the puzzle's difficult, we'll eventually get stuck and we need to use pencil marks. There are two types of pencil marks. Firstly, within one square, if we know that a number can only go in a set number of positions, we can pencil that number into the corner of the box. For example, because of these two 8s in the rows and this 8 in the column, we know that there is an 8 in one of these two squares, so we can pencil in 8 in both of these squares. The other type of pencil mark is where we want to write candidate numbers into a box. We write these numbers in the centre of the box. In this box we have all numbers except 4, 6 and 7. We can see that this square can't be a 4 because of this 4, so we can pencil mark in the candidates 6 and 7 in this box and pencil in 4, 6 and 7 in the other two squares in the box. We keep working through the puzzle, rubbing out the pencil marks when we need to, until all the numbers are added. So I'm going to start with this Sudoku game that I wrote back in 2012. It's a web-based game. When we start it up, we get a dialogue asking us what difficulty level we want to play the game. We've got 4 choices: easy, intermediate, hard or very hard. We've also got to solve existing puzzle. I'll show you that in a moment. So we choose our level. I'll choose easy, and the numbers are filled into the grid, and we have a score and a timer. I'm going to get rid of the score, but here's the timer, which is just telling us how long we've spent on the puzzle. We've got menus at the top. We've got a new game where we go back to this dialogue and we can choose the difficulty level again. We've also got a restart current game. If we put some numbers into the grid, so if I click on a empty cell here, I get this dialogue with the numbers in and clear, and I can put numbers in like that. If I restart a game from here, it will just delete all the numbers that I've put in. I can't click on the numbers that are part of the puzzle. And another thing I could do is I could go to the solver menu and choose solve current puzzle, and it will just solve it for me. Then when the puzzle's complete, I can click play again and choose the level again. If I want to choose solve existing puzzle, it gives me a blank cell. Now we have no timer at the top, and we can just enter cells like this, and then we can solve that. So if we've got a Sudoku puzzle in a newspaper or something that we can't be bothered to solve ourselves, we can get this to do it for us quickly. Of course, there's a possibility that it may be a puzzle that we can't solve. So if we have, say, 2 of the same number in a cell and we try and solve that, it says puzzle has no solution. So that's pretty much the old game. I'm going to take the code of this and put it in a new project and improve it significantly. The first job is to download GWT. GWT is an open source toolkit for making browser-based applications. It works on both the server and client side, but I'm using it just to convert Java to JavaScript for running on the client side. It's really easy to install in Eclipse. You just visit the website and drag the install link over to Eclipse. That installs the GWT plugin. Here I'm installing GWT and accepting all the default options. I restart Eclipse and I'm good to go. I start off with the Hello World project just to make sure I've got GWT set up correctly. The project is automatically generated by Eclipse when we add a new GWT project. It's a kind of client-server greeting thing where you're prompted to enter your name and then the server says hello to you. I have a quick scan over the code, run it up along with the Jetty server and check that things are working. Then I import my old Sudoku game, have a quick scan over this code and get that running. Now I'm ready to set up a new project for my updated Sudoku game. I'm setting up a new GWT project and I'm copy and pasting the old code into the new project. This is because I'm going to make significant changes to the code and I want to start with a clean sheet. I'm not just blindly copying the code across, but I'm refamiliarizing myself with the code and trying to make a mental plan of what I'm going to do. I'm also making a few minor tweaks as I go. The main problem with the old game is that you can't do pencil marks on the puzzle. Also, you can't select multiple cells at the same time. These are the main reasons I'm giving the game an update. Okay, so I'm going to quickly run through the code of the existing game. So we've got a HTML page here. This has got a few scripts in it. This script here is the script for our JavaScript for our game that we're compiling. And then we've got some Facebook script and some Google Analytics script just so I can keep an eye on who's playing the game. And we've got a Facebook like button. Then we've got a table which is defined here, and in that table we've got 5 separate sections. So we've got a menu bar container, a timer field container, a canvas container, status field container and a play again button container. And these areas are where we're going to interact with in our script. We've got a CSS file to define the borders and background images of various things. So for example, this main table here is the main table that we've got defined here, and we've got things defined for that. So for example, we've got a background image just to make it look a bit better, and borders and margins and widths and things. And then we've got all the different sections in the CSS for the various different elements that we're going to look at. So that's the HTML file, and these are the sections that we're going to interact with. So if we look at the main Sudoku game, the main Sudoku class, the first thing we can see is that this class implements the achievement listener interface. What the achievement listener does is it gets notified when a game is completed. So we'll see what calls that soon. So the Sudoku class defines each of these different classes that we'll go through in turn in a minute, but the main class, the main method, the application entry point, is the on module load method. So that populates the different containers in the HTML. So here we're getting the panel, and first we're making a menu bar in the menu bar container. Now the menu bar has got a game menu, which in that it's got the new game method, which calls new game in this class, which will open up a level choose dialog, which we'll look at in just a second. It's got a restart this game method that calls restart game in board, and if the it sets the level in the board and sets the play again button invisible. It also, if the game is a custom game, that is one that we're entering ourselves to be solved, it switches the timer off. But if it's a game with a level, a game that we're playing, it resets the timer. And then we've got a solve menu that calls board solve, and that in turn will call the solver class to solve the current puzzle. So that's the menu bar. Then we've got a timer field in the timer field container. That's the clock that we'll take a look at in a minute. Then we've got the main canvas, which is a board, the status field, which I think is just a label that we can set the status of. and the play again button. The play again button calls new game. And then at the end of this method, when we've populated all the different bits of the HTML, we create a level chooser dialog and we choose new game. Now new game goes into the level chooser dialog and opens that up. So we'll take a look at that in just a minute. The only other thing to see in this class is the game completed method that will open a game completed dialog and say in the status field, congratulations, you've completed the game. So the level chooser dialog, that gives us a menu and asks us what level we want to play at, or whether we want to solve an existing puzzle. Then we choose that and it just calls start game back in the Sudoku class and hides the dialog when we've selected a level. The clock class, that has a label and a timer, and it runs a new thread and it just updates the label of the new thread. It can be reset, it can be switched on and off, which are being called by the Sudoku class, and it gets a time string. So this is formatting a string, so it's getting the time is just a counter in seconds, it's just formatting it into hours, minutes and seconds, or yeah, hours, minutes and seconds. So the board class, this is the main area of the screen, and this consists of squares, and squares have values. Value of 0 will mean there's no digit in the cell, and a value of 1 to 9 will mean there is a digit. And this square class has a draw method, and that will draw an image according to which value is in this square. And then we've got a whole load of methods in here like set value, set highlighted, get value, is locked. Whether a square is locked or not, if it's locked if it's a square of the actual puzzle, a square that we can't edit. And then we've got clear conflicts, various methods in there. And then we've got the on click method, which is going to check to see if the square is locked, and it's going to open the number picker and allow us to select a number for that cell. And we also have the solve method in here that was called from Sudoku, which is going to call solve in the solver class. So the number picker is a dialog, a pop-up panel, and that just displays all numbers from 1 to 9 and clear, and gives us the option to select one of those. When we select it, we call board set value, and the number picker is initialized with the board, and we show it with the selected square, so it knows which square to fill in the value of. Then we have the solver. Now I'm not going to go into too much detail about what's going on here. I think it's just trying out a brute force sort of method to try and solve the puzzle. I'm going to be improving this in the future, so we'll look at that in a future video. The game completed dialog is another pop-up panel, and that just tells us that we've completed the game, and we just close it with the OK button. And then the final class to explain is game. So this, we have a level: easy, intermediate, hard, very hard, new puzzle, or custom. And that we've got a get game description, it's spelled wrong there, but get game description, which will be displayed presumably in the status panel. And then we've got these games defined here. Now when we create a new game, these games are defined as arrays, 3D arrays, so we've got the rows and the columns, and then we have 5 easy games, 5 intermediate games, 5 hard games, and 5 very hard games. And they're just defined with the numbers that are going to be in the cells, with zeros being empty cells. I've also got some cheat games which are easy games with just one cell missing. I think if we look here, we just have one cell set to 0. This is so I can test what happens when we complete a game. If I'm testing the game, I don't want to have to solve a Sudoku puzzle every time I want to check that the game completion dialogue is working. So I can choose a cheat game, and that will not be visible to the end user, but it's just for testing. And then what's happening here, we've got a flip and a rotate thing. Now, I'll explain that in a bit more detail. So what we do, we pick a game, but because we've only got 5 of each game, we perform some transformations on the game to make it seem like a new game to the user. So here's how that works. So first I pick a random game of the 5 games defined for the selected level. Then I pick a random number between 0 and 1. If the number is greater than half, in other words a 50% chance, I flip the board horizontally. I then repeat this, picking another random number between 0 and 1, and if the number is greater than half, I flip the board vertically. I then choose a random number between 0 and 3, and I rotate the board this many times. Finally, I make a table with 2 columns of numbers from 1 to 9. I shuffle a second column, and I use this table to replace the numbers across the game with a new set of numbers. So we've got 5 games at each level. They can be transformed by 2 sets of 2 flips, multiplied by 4 rotations, and then multiplied by 9 mod for the number of replacements. This gives a total of 29,030,400 unique games for each level. Okay, so here's the game as it is now. What I want to do to it, the main change I want to make is the ability to make pencil marks. So I want to be able to make the pencil marks in the corner and also candidate pencil marks in the center of the cells. And the dialogue that comes up when you select a cell here, I'd like to change this so it's permanently available on the right, and that we can do keyboard controls to control it. Another thing I'd like to do is be able to select cells. So for example, if we're doing pencil marks, we might want to put pencil marks in a number of cells. So for example, have a 1 here and a 1 here. I might want both this cell and this cell. I might want to put a pencil mark in the corner there of a 1. So I want to be able to select multiple cells with the mouse or the keyboard, and over here on the right I want to be able to enter the numbers. I also want the option to be able to enter the numbers with the keyboard. And another thing that would be nice is the option to undo once you've done something in here. If you realize you've gone wrong, I'd like to be able to undo back to the point where I think I went wrong. So those are the changes I'm going to make. So let's do a bit of design to have a look at how I'd like the screen to look. I think I'd like to go for a plainer look, get rid of this sort of blue color and have a more standard Sudoku grid, because also in the future I might want to add some more features to this game. For example, make it able to do killer Sudoku, and I think with this colored grid like this, it's difficult to see how we could get sort of killer Sudoku clues and that sort of thing. So let's do a bit of design. So I'm going to start off with a larger, plainer looking grid. The lock numbers will be black and the player numbers will be blue. Pencil marks will be grey in a smaller font and can be written in either the corner or the centre of the square. Then I'll keep the menu bar at the top and a status bar at the bottom, but I'll give these a consistent colour theme. The number picker I'll move over to the right and keep it permanently there. I'll then have buttons to select whether we're entering normal numbers, corner pencil marks or centre pencil marks, and I'll add buttons at the bottom for undo, delete and redo. I'll colour coordinate the buttons, but will try to keep a consistent theme throughout the game. Finally, I'll put the timer field at the bottom right corner of the screen. Okay, so this isn't the definite final list, but this is approximately what I want to do, and also I'm not necessarily going to do it in this order, but I want to move the number picker to a panel on the right side. I want to reposition the status bar in the lower left and the timer in the lower right. I want to make the whole thing, give it a larger, plainer look. I want to be able to control it from the keyboard, so go from cell to cell and button on the right to the button on the right with the keyboard. I want to be able to do multi-cell selection, so if I hold down Control I want to be able to select multiple cells, or if I hold down Shift I want to be able to select whole rows or columns or sets of cells. Then I want to be able to select whether I'm putting in normal numbers, corner pencil marks or candidate pencil marks, and I want the cells to be able to cope with that. And then I want to add an undo and redo function. So let's get straight into this. Okay, so I've got my list of jobs. I'm going to start with the HTML and I'm going to reposition things and get things looking a bit different. So let's get started on that. So this is a kind of facelift phase of the project. For me, this was the most difficult phase because it's a lot of messing around with HTML and CSS style sheets. I do understand this stuff, but I don't work with it every day. So remembering how to center text, add padding and margins to things is mostly trial and error for me. Hence, I'm constantly refreshing the game in the browser to see how my changes are working out. I'm also a bit rusty with Grit, so knowing whether I need a panel, a decorator panel, a drawing area, etc. is all a bit trial and error again. If I worked with Grit more often, I'm sure this phase would have been done much quicker, but as it is, just this bit we're whizzing through now ended up being 2 hours work. Okay, so I've done the basic facelift on the game. A lot of this time was spent messing around with the CSS file to get things to format in the correct colors with the correct margins and that sort of thing. I had a bit of trouble with the Grit menu items, but I got there in the end. So we've got the same menus as we had before, and we've taken the status message down to the bottom right and the timer down to the bottom left. I've still got this start dialog which is now appearing in the wrong place, and it looks a little bit different to the rest of the game, different color set, so I'll do something about that. And the board drawing, I've got rid of that completely now, and the clicking on buttons no longer works. What I was using images for the numbers in the buttons, I want to change that to be just text going into a square of some sort. And I think I was detecting the clicks by the coordinates on the screen where the mouse is clicked. Now I want to change that to use buttons. So in this dialog, these are actually buttons. This is dependent on me being able to override the paint method of the Grit button, because I want to be able to draw the numbers and the pencil marks. So if we look back at the design, this is a basic design and it's looking reasonably similar. The next thing I'm going to do, I'm going to draw in the intermediate lines to split these boxes into 9 by 9. These are just lines drawn here. I'm going to put buttons in the middle and see if I can get those buttons to look right. And then I need to move the number picker functionality out and put that over here. So let's continue. Okay, so I've implemented a new style of button. I've made an S button class, and that's an abstract class that just has a click method. I couldn't add buttons to this because it's a drawing canvas and I want the control of exactly where I put things. I don't want to use layout managers and have to put things in like flow layout or thing, because it'll be impossible to arrange things exactly where I want them. So I'm using a rectangle. So the way I've done this in board, I've got a click method that will detect a click anywhere in this canvas, and when I add a button, a rectangle, so a square extends S button and S button extends rectangle. So I'm adding squares to the board. They draw a rectangle on the board, and I'm also adding them to a buttons list, and that's an S button. and then when I click somewhere in the canvas, I'm looping through all of my buttons in a list and seeing if the coordinates are under where the mouse is, and if it is, I'm doing button click. So my number picker panel that I'm going to put over here, I'll be able to implement that with an type of S button, which will detect clicks and draw a rectangle on the screen. But a square is more specialized. A square is a square in the board that takes a number. So let's continue. Okay, so this has suddenly got a lot easier to do now I'm working with the Java. So I've just added a button click method to each button, and in that I'm calling set highlighted true and false. And in set highlighted, when a square is highlighted, I'm adding a highlighted rectangle to the canvas. That highlighted rectangle is initialized at the start. I don't want the color to be that bright, but this is a good start. So we've got a button working, we've got a cell highlighting. I want to be able to drag across the cell to highlight a number of different cells. I think I'll get highlighting working first, and then I'll look at the number panel, and then I'll put the numbers into the board. So I shall continue. Okay, so I've got the cell selection working. Instead of doing it off a click event, I've completely got rid of the click. I'm just doing it on mouse down and mouse up. In the mouse down, that's the reason is because when I let go of the mouse button on a cell, it was counting it as a click. So if I had a click to just select a new square, as I was selecting a line, when I let go, it would deselect everything. So the mouse down and mouse up method seems to be the best way to go. So on the mouse down, if I'm not holding down the Alt key, the Control key, or the Shift key, I'm clearing selection, which is just looping through all the buttons and setting highlighted to false. And then on the mouse down, I've made this method get button for coords, which is getting the square from the coordinates. If there is a square under the mouse position, it's returning it. If not, it's returning null. And then when we've got the square, if the button is not null, we're just highlighting it. So when we press the mouse down, we're highlighting the square. On mouse move, I'm highlighting multiple squares. That's the effect I wanted. And if I hold down either Control, Shift, or Alt, I can select multiple ranges of cells. So that's how I wanted that to work, so we can select a bunch of cells. Now I'll put the control panel over here, and then we'll work with tying in the controls with the board. Also, these buttons have these new control buttons. They have an action command. So when I do my click handlers, I'll loop through, see if we've got a control button selected, and if we have, we'll look up the action command and we'll perform whatever task according to that. So for example, this normal button, I'm going to give it an action command normal, which is just a string. I'll define it in this statics up here. So and it's just a string, so when I get the button that's been clicked, I'll get the action command out of that button, and then I'll perform whatever task it is that that button should perform. So here we are in the onClick method. So I'm going to get the button in the same way as before. I've extended the get button for coords method to loop through the squares and also through the control buttons. In the existing methods, I am checking if the button's a square if I want to highlight it. but I'm going to do it in the on click method because I don't think we'll be selecting multiple of these buttons with a sort of mouse move action. So I'm going to do the control buttons in here. So I'll cast it to a control button, and then I'm going to get the action command out of it. So control button, get action command. I just need to define that method. And I'm just going to get the first three working. So I just define get action command, getter there. So in here, I'm going to say the action command is get action command. If the action command equals control normal, I want to deselect the other two buttons and select this one. So I'll save the buttons locally in here. So if the normal button is pressed, we deselect pencil candidate and pencil corner and select normal. If pencil candidate is selected, we deselect the other two and select that. So that's the effect we want to do for now, and then we'll go on and do the other buttons. Actually, I've changed my mind about this action command because I can just, now I've just saved those buttons, I can say if control button equals normal button, then so I'll get rid of the action command altogether. So I'm not sure whether this highlighting is working because the background highlight, so the control panel's got two rectangles, a background rectangle and a highlight rectangle. I'm adding the background rectangle to the canvas, and then when it's highlighted, I'm adding the highlight rectangle to the canvas. The background rectangle doesn't seem to be being added at the moment. Reason I did it in this order was to see if the highlight would work, and it doesn't, so I need to work out why that is. Okay, so that's worked. I think I just made a grey a bit more red and it's come out pink. I think I'll go for some sort of blue to match the rest for the highlight, but the background still isn't working. Now I am guessing I'm doing it in color. No, that's right, that's the background color. So this code is almost the same as that code. This is working, but this isn't. Now maybe it's because we're doing it too soon. Let me just see if I add the background in the highlight method. Yeah. Okay. Okay, so I've constructed this, but I haven't added it to the canvas. Is that right? So when I construct these control buttons, I haven't yet added them to the canvas. So I think I need to add them before I initialize them. Okay, I'll try that. Yeah, so that's worked. I just needed to initialize the background of the button after it had been added to the canvas. So now I'll add the number buttons and the other buttons, and then we've just got to tie it together and paint the numbers in the square. There's still quite a bit to do, but I'll add the buttons now. Okay, so I'm just positioning all my buttons. I think I've got all the colors the way I want them. What I haven't done yet, and what I will do next, is I've got to put some text in the button because they're just empty buttons at the moment. So we should see. Oh no, that's not worked. What did I forgot to do add control button for them all. So if I do this, we should see our buttons. Okay, so there's our buttons. So we can't select, we can only select the top ones. The rest of them are just click buttons. I think that's the way I want it. I don't really like that pink. I'll change that to the blue color. It's suitable, I think, because the numbers are blue. So I think that's the blue color. No, that's the blue color. We want that for there. And there we have. Oh, yeah, I've got to do it to all three buttons. So that's easy enough. So now I'm going to put the text in the buttons, and according to the design, this needs to be in the corner, this needs to be in the center. So, and I think the font size for this is slightly smaller, so I might have to fiddle around with a few parameters for font size, and maybe I'll see how it goes, but I'll get the text in those buttons and then we'll deal with the button events. Okay, so I've got a problem with the coordinate of the font is coming out as the center of the square where I really need it to be moved across, so I might have to do some font metrics type stuff. I've also got to deal with this corner one, but other than that we're most of the way there. Oh, the highlight is going over the text, but that's going to be easy to deal with. So I'm most of the way there. I'll just deal with getting this text centered and getting the corner thing and the highlight. So I'll carry on with this. A bit of a problem I've got is that because we're doing this online in a browser, I'm setting the font family to Impact, Arial, Helvetica, Sans Serif. Now we don't know which font is going to be available on the system, so I can't see how I can do font metrics exactly because I don't know what font I'm using, and even here I don't seem to have a method to get font, so I don't know what font exactly is going to be available on the target system. So I need to have a think about this. Maybe if I'll search to see if there's a way of centering the text in the text. Set text to be in the middle of a label. It looks like it might be set vertical alignment. Maybe I can do something like that. Text box set alignment. I don't know. I keep fiddling around. Okay, so I'm in a bit of a catch-22 here. I want to use text objects to represent the text on my buttons instead of text boxes. The reason is because text boxes I think need to be laid out with a layout manager, and I want more control. I want precise control of where I'm drawing my text. But the text object doesn't seem to be accepting styles from the style sheet, so I can't center the text exactly where I want it, and the text is the coordinate that I'm adding the text at is the lower left hand corner. Now what I'd usually do to center the object is I could recalculate the coordinates if I could get the font metrics object to measure the height and the width of the font, but because it's an online game and we're rendering in whichever font we can get from the system, but we don't know what system we're running on, we don't know exactly what font we're going to be using. So I've got an idea how I'm going to get out of it. I'm going to see if I can draw an image and then measure the image, but I'm not quite sure how I'm going to do this, so I'll keep messing around and see what I can do. Actually, I seem to have solved that problem now, so I can get the text width and the text height out of the text object, and then I can set the X and Y. I can offset it by the width over 2 and height over 2. So I think that is now going to give us some centered text on our buttons. I've probably gone the wrong way for the Y, have I? Text height is text box, get text height, set Y. Do I need to add it? Right. Okay, so the text height being reported, the width looks good. I've got the X position in the center, but the text height is probably including the total height. Maybe I can do that in some other way. The total height including sort of letters that go above the standard handwriting lines and below. How was it before I did anything to the Y position? It was too high. Maybe if I do it half the font size. Okay, that seems to be satisfactory. So we've got our buttons. So I'll just continue. Okay, to get the highlight rectangle behind the text, I'm going to add the highlight rectangle at the start, but set it to be not visible. And then when we highlight, instead of adding and removing the highlight rectangle, I'm just going to set it to be visible and not. And I'm hoping that because we've put, yeah, that's right. So we put it behind the text area. So now when we highlight these buttons, they work well. So now I can implement the functions. So we'll select some text, put some numbers into the boxes according to which one of these is selected. All right, so let's do that. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to look at is I'm going to go back to the new game thing. So the new game is calling board set value, and that has a locked flag which locks the cell, and board clear. So I'm going to re-implement those methods in board. So board clear is going to go through all the squares and set them to 0 or blank and unlock them, and then board set value is going to set the value with the number for the game and lock the cell. And then in the square object, I'll implement the thing to draw the numbers, and also if the number's locked, I think I'll make it black, and if it's not locked, I'll make it blue. And then I've also got to do the thing with the pencil marks in the square, so I'll do a bit of work on the board and square to put the numbers in, and then we'll tie it all together with this. So with the square object, I've got flags for locked, conflicted. I'm not quite can't quite remember what conflicted does, but I'll keep it in here and see if I need it. Value, I'm also going to add a list of corner pencil marks and a list of candidate pencil marks. And I've got a list of text objects. Now every time something changes, I'm going to call draw. I'm going to remove all those text objects from the canvas, and I'm going to redraw text objects. If there is a value in the cell, I'll just draw that. If not, I'll loop through the candidate text, the candidate values and the corner mark values, and I'll draw in pencil marks. So this is I'll be borrowing some code from the control buttons for getting the text in the right place. But that's the plan, so let's implement the stuff on square, and then hopefully we should see the numbers of the new game filled into the grid. So let's do that. Okay, so this seems to be working. I can say new game, and it's giving me a new game. I need to do the same thing about the highlighting. It needs to be done with set visible rather than drawing the highlighted box over the text. I also don't want to be able to highlight lock cells, and I'll work on the pencil marks after, but I just want to be able to input numbers into the cells. Okay, so I've just solved a problem here. When we were putting the text in the grid, it's selectable, so this is nice. We can select our cells as we want to from before, but when we go over a text digit, it selects all the text digits and it's just messy. So what I need to do is I need to consume the event, and luckily there's a prevent default method on the mouse down method. So in our main mouse down handler, I can do prevent default, and that is stopping that from happening. So now we've got a nice selection of the cells. It would probably also happen on here. No, well, oh no, because it's on the main mouse down. So that's solved that. So next thing I want to do is to be able to put in numbers. We want this n to be selected by default, and then we want to be able to put in numbers. So I'll do that, and then I'll look at the pencil marks, and then look at the undo and redo and clear, and then the solver. So let's get so that we can put numbers in the grid. Okay, so that's a reasonably quick change. I just added a set value in grid method, which will loop through all the squares, and when we click button 1, we set value in grid to 1. So that, I don't think we're drawing the numbers in the square, so let's do that. Actually, I think we are drawing the numbers in the grid. I think that I'm immediately deselecting the square when we click a number. So what I need to do in board, when we select a button on the right over here, we don't want it to affect the selection of the buttons on the left. So let's sort that out. Okay, so now we can put numbers into the grid. Of course, it doesn't matter what we put. We can also clear numbers off. So next I want to look at the pencil marks and the corner pencil marks. So I need to add the ability to add these to the square. They're toggles, so if I put them in, I could take them out by clicking the same number again. And then I need to draw it in the square, so I'll do those things. So I've just done the candidates. If there's a value in the box, we'll do that. If there's not, we'll do the candidates. And I've done the candidates as a list of candidates, so just the numbers will appear. I'm still doing it in the center of the box, but I'm doing it with the pencil color and the pencil font size, so that should look very different. It's now candidate 1. Yeah, that's doing okay. 4, 5, 6. We're going to run out of space. Of course, it's appearing to the bottom because I'm doing font size normal when calculating. Now, I think I need to have a think what to do if we put too many of these in. And also they're not very clear. If I something strange happened when I clear. 1 2 0 2 0 0. Okay, if we clear in corner mode, I want it to get rid of everything. So I'll deal with that first. That should be in square. If we say toggle candidate with 0, if candidate equals 0, then just candidates.clear. And the same with corner. I do need to have a think about how the undo and redo are going to work. 1 2 clear, and candidate 2 5 8 clear. It goes to 0. Candidates clear, else add the candidate, and same for corners. Clear 2 5 8 clear. Okay, and I might try and make the font a little bit smaller. And a little bit thinner. It'd be nice to be able to fit 9 numbers in there. And I might make the grid a little bit bigger. Let's experiment. Okay, so that was a nice easy change to make. I could just make the grid bigger and all of the digits from 1 to 9 fit in there. The corner digits, I might make the normal digits a bit bigger now. but the corner digits are going to be a little bit trickier because we want them right justified up against the edge. But I'll make the main digits a bit bigger and then I'll deal with the corners. Another thing I want to do is if we put numbers in here, they're going on the end, but I'd like to keep them in order. So I'm just going to, when we add anything to these candidate lists, I'm just going to sort them. Collection sort candidates. Also, I had to convert this to an integer instead of an int because when we were doing remove, it was removing the with the int parameter on remove, it was removing the thing at that index, not necessarily the type we want removed. So collection sort candidates, I'll do the same for corners. And now when we put our values in as candidates, this game is the easy cheat game. So now if we put candidate 2, 3, 1, 5, 4, we're getting them in the right order. And there's toggling 4, toggling 3, and we can always clear. So that seems to be working fine. Now we do the corners. Okay, so now we can select our squares, put our numbers in, put our candidate numbers in, and put numbers in the corner. And we can take the numbers back out of the corner. Same with the candidates, we can take those out. And we can put our normal numbers in. So I think the undo and the redo I'm going to do last. I just want to get the game to the same state as it was before. So solve. First we'll see what happens when we complete a game. So if I go easy, I've still got the cheat game going. So what are we missing out of here? 4. Okay, so that's highlighted a conflict because we're not missing 4. What happened there? And why are we able to... Okay, there's some problem. I think when we start a new game we need to unhighlight everything. Is that the problem? If I highlight that cell, say new game, that cell remains highlighted, and so does that one. Okay, I'll just do that first. Okay, so finish this game. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, now because the board's full, whatever was happening before, we check to see if that game's finished and stop the timer and give the user congratulations. Start a new game. If we put a bad number in, we probably don't want to do anything or highlight the conflicts. Or 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so let's just get the game to the same state as it was before, so when we finish the game it congratulates us. So I'm really just putting in the old bits of code to restart the game, solve the board. I'm not sure how well this is going to work. Okay, let's see. There's bound to be some problems with this. If I restart the game, it gets cleared. I've also added some code to clear pencil marks so we can restart this game. Timer's currently counting. Restart the game, the board's cleared and it goes back to 0. Can we solve the current puzzle? Yep, we can, and it goes to play again. Easy. And what happens if we finish the game? So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay, nothing happens if we finish the game, but everything else seems to be working. So let's find what happens when we finish the game. Where's the check to see if we've won? Okay, I'm just putting in the old methods check for conflicts, which is first there's an is completed method that loops through every square of the board, and if the value of a square is 0, then it returns false. Every time we put a number in the board, I'm going to call that, and so when we do set value in grid, I'm going to check, see if the game's completed. If it is, it goes into check for conflicts. That's looping through every row, every column, and also every square. And if the numbers are the same if there's two numbers the same in any row, column or square, that's returning, or rather that is setting the board to be conflicted. Now if it's conflicted, I'll highlight it in a different color. I'll do that in just a minute. But if it's conflicted, then the square is set to conflicted. Then we've got a is conflicted method, which checks every square, see if it's conflicted. If it is, it returns true, else it returns false. And if all of this has happened, so if the board's completed and it's not conflicted, we notify the achievement listener, which is the interface that the main Sudoku class implements, that the game is completed, and that will give us a dialog to say we've completed the game, and it will show us the play again button. It will stop the timer and show us a dialog and give us a chance to start again. If the game isn't completed, we'll clear the conflicts. So I'll do something to highlight the conflicts, but the general idea is like this. So we play a new game, we get to the end of the game, if we put in the value which is missing, which is 1, sorry, I'm going to put in the value 2 and nothing happens, but at this point I want it to highlight the conflicted squares so that we can't complain we're being cheated. If we put in the value 1, the game's completed. It's doing some sort of image in this dialogue, I don't know why. I think it was a sort of cup, a trophy sort of a cup. I'll fix that or get rid of the image altogether. So that's good. This dialogue's in the wrong place, as was the new game dialogue, so there's a few things to clear up. Solve existing puzzle. Wow, that's not working, but we'll have a look at that later. So I want to get the conflicts highlighted, fix the dialogues, a few things left to do, so I'll get on with it. Okay, so here's the conflicting squares. So if I put in a conflicting number, say here, if I put in the number 9, we get the 9s in the rows and the columns highlighted. So we can't complain that it didn't let us win when we should have won. When we make a move after that, the conflicts disappear. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. The right answer is 7. And then we've completed the game. So I want to put this dialogue in a better place. I want to fix the dialogue that tells us when we've won. That's not the right answer. 1, 2, 3. No, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I want to fix this dialogue, put it in a better place and make it match the rest of the scheme better. I can do a new puzzle and I could solve an existing puzzle, but what I can't do is start a new solve existing puzzle game as soon as I put something in there. Is it working? Well, these cells should be locked anyway, but it completely made a new puzzle. There's a few things left to do. I think I'll work on the look of the dialogues first. Okay, so I've been improving the look of things. So the new game dialogue is now matching in color. I'm going to choose an easy game so that I can do it with this cheat function. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 is missing. So if I put a wrong number in, I get the conflict in squares. If I put the right number in, I get this dialogue now. It's just pretty simple, but it's color coordinated with the rest of the game. Also, the dialogues are now centered in the middle of the screen. If I say a new game, I can do the solve, but the two things that aren't working now is solve existing puzzle. I want this to be putting in locked squares, and I don't really want to be able to do pencil marks for solve existing puzzle. So solve existing puzzle, I think I'll make these boxes invisible. I'll also make these, no, well, I want to keep clear, but I'll keep undo and redo. I'll get rid of those when we're solving existing puzzle. And when we do solve current puzzle, it just replaces those squares anyway, I think, because they're not locked. So there's entering in our own puzzle that we need to do. Everything else I think is working except the undo and the redo. So I'll do that at the end because that's a new function. I need to work out how I'm going to remember the state of the board between undo and redo, but I'll find a way to do that. So let's get this solve existing puzzle function working. Okay, so I've implemented the solve existing puzzle. So when we say game, new game, now we can enter in our square. There's a few differences. We've not got the pencil marks, the undo or the redo. Also, when we put cells in, we can still select the cells and overwrite them. When we put a value in, we're locking the cells, and when we put a 0 in, we're unlocking the cells. So we're putting in black numbers here. And then finally solve current puzzle, and it will solve the puzzle for us. So that's that function added back into the game. The only thing I think I've got left to do is if we click on a button we get that's fair enough. The only thing I've got left to do is the undo and redo. we don't get the congratulations message if we solve the puzzle as well, which is good. But if we solve and then click clear, if we click any number, okay, I want that to stop happening. I think the play again, I'm going to put it in a dialogue. And why not just stick it in the solve existing puzzle? When the play again button is visible, it's the only thing we want to be selectable. So I'm going to put the play again button in a dialogue. Okay, I changed my mind about the play again dialogue because I don't know where to put it really. And there's a new game menu, so when we finish the game we get the congratulations. What I do want to do though is add an end game method to board, which will set all of these buttons invisible because we don't need them anymore. Okay, so I think apart from the undo and redo, everything is done now. So if I finish this game, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8 in there, we get the dialogue. The control buttons disappear, so we can't do anything to make the dialogue play up. We go new game. If we wanted to restart that game, that's a 2 in there. We can restart. We can solve a current puzzle. That makes the dialogue disappear. We can't restart that game again. That's reasonable though, because if we've just done solve, we don't want them to write down the numbers and cheat. So new game. Just test a few more times. It all seems to be working. Then if I put solve current puzzle, I can put in our numbers here. I can play the game that I've just entered in. I can solve it. So it all seems to be working. I've got rid of the play again button. I've made the buttons on here disappear as and when required, and they all reappear when I start the game or restart the game. So the only thing to do is undo and redo. Now I think I'll do that on a board level, and I think I need to just make a log in board of everything that happens, and then if we undo, just undo one thing at a time. I'm not entirely sure how I'm going to do this, but I'll have a go. Okay, so this is completely untested, but what I've done is I've added a history static object. It's got static things inside it, and it's got an undo history and a redo history. I've got clear history. I still need to call that when I start a new game. Is there a convenient new game method here? Set level, I think, is a new game. There, I can say history, clear history. Okay, so we clear the history when we make a new game, and that will clear both the undo history and the redo history. We've also got a clear redo only, and that's because when we undo things, if we make a move, we want the redo option to be gone. And then we've got add undo and add redo, which adds to these lists. Get undo and get redo, which gets the latest thing out of these lists. Now these lists contain history records and they contain history objects. The reason I've got a history record is because when we do things to multiple cells, we want to be able to undo that one move. So we want to undo multiple cell things at the same time in one undo motion. So this history record has got a list of history objects. They consist of a square, its previous value, its previous candidate value, and its previous corners value. So I've added getters in the square to get these values for value, candidate, and corners out of it. Then in board, when we make a move, so we make a move in the set value in grid method, I'm making a new list of history objects, and for each square that I change, I'm adding a history object for that square, and on the history object constructor it's reading the values out. And then I'm adding the undo at the end and clearing the redo because we're making a move. Then the undo and the redo button, the undo will get the undo, it will create a redo for each object, each square in this undo, and it will apply history to the square. The redo does the opposite thing. It gets the redo, it creates a new undo object so we can undo it again. And when we get these objects, we're actually removing them from the list. Get history objects. And let me double check that we're doing that. So history get undo, we're removing it from the list. So we undo once. So when we undo, we're adding a redo. When we redo, we're adding an undo. I've got no idea if this is going to work. Let's give it a go. So I'm going to play an intermediate game so I can do a few things. So in that cell I'm going to add a 1, and that cell 1, that cell 1, and then I'm going to undo, undo. I wonder if this is a paint issue. No, undo and redo appear to be doing nothing, so okay, I'll work out what's wrong with that. So where I'm going to debug this history is with the window alert. So I'm just going to see when we add, I'm not going to worry about redo for now. I'm just going to see if we're getting the clear history, the add undo, and the get undo. So let's run. We should see clear history. There we go. When we add a number, we should see add undo, yeah, and get undo. Okay, so we got the undo. What I think we need to do in Square when we apply the history is just do a draw. That's possibly the only thing I was doing wrong. So add undo, undo, get undo. Right, I think that's it. So if I just take out those window alerts, I'll just comment them out in case I need to do it again. And let's see if we can undo some moves. So 1, 2, I'll put a corner, 1, 2, 3 as a candidate, and a corner, 2, 3, 5. Now undo. 2, 3, 5. It's become 2, 3, 5, 2, 3, 2, Okay, so the core is working apart from that corner. Did I clear the corner on square? Candidates clear, corners clear. So I think that's going to be it. So I can 1, 2, put in some candidates, put in some corners, and then undo, 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 redo, 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 redo. Now if I undo to there, and then I put in a number, I can undo and keep undoing, but I've cleared the redo. So that seems to be right. If I solve current puzzle, I can't undo. If I start a new game, I can't redo, I can't undo. If I restart this game, can I undo, redo? So that seems to be it. Oh, one thing I didn't test is undoing a batch of things. So if I put in candidates, put in corners, and undo them all in one go, and redo them all. So that's exactly what I wanted to do. So I think that that's pretty much, oh, I'll just check, yeah, clearing works as well. Oh, I can't clear the, yeah. Yeah, that seems to work. It gets a bit confusing. I don't want to perform the action of adding candidates or corners to things that already have values, because then if I undo that, it seems like nothing is undoing. So I'll just fix that. So I'm just doing a test on the candidate and corner application to say only perform that task if the value is 0. So in other words, if I put a 1 in there and then I start putting candidates, if I undo, right, I only want to add the undo history if history objects size is greater than 0. And I only want to clear the redo in that case as well. Right, so like I was just saying, if I put in a number and then I start putting in candidates underneath it, they're not being accepted. Undo and just that number. So candidates and corners now, if I click these, it's not doing anything because we've already got a number in there, and I think that's what we want. So I'm going to have a go at a Sudoku game just to make sure everything works. I'm going to play easy, but I'm now going to switch off this cheat function. So I'll get an easy game, but it won't be a test easy game. So I think that function is just a flag somewhere. It's called cheat, and it's boolean cheat equals true. So just set that to false, and I'll play an easy game. So here goes. So if it's too easy, I want to have to put in some candidates. So let's have a go. So one is either there or in one of those two, because it's in the center. Okay, I think that's done. One thing I would say, and I'm glad I tested it like this, is I'm not particularly happy with the font. It's a bit difficult on the eyes. I think for the main panel I'm going to change the font, get rid of this impact font and just change it to Arial or whatever it's called. So I'll see if I can slightly improve it. It just seems a little, I don't know, it's just a little bit difficult to concentrate on this this font for some reason. It might just be my preference, but I'll see if I can improve the appearance a bit. Okay, so I think I'm going to stick with that. The Arial font is pretty clear. I think these digits don't quite fit into the cell, but I don't think you should be penciling in 1 to 9 in a cell. I think pencil marks really should be restricted a bit. So everything seems to be working. Can we? Yeah, we can still tell the difference between the locked squares, which are black, and the squares that we filled in, which have got blue inside. So everything, I think, seems to be working. So that's our Sudoku game. I'm going to try a very hard game. So I've deployed the game onto my web server. I dropped the HTML and the JavaScript files into the web server directory. So if you'd like to play the game, here's a link for it. So I hope you enjoy it. If you've enjoyed this video, give it a like, and if you've learned something, then subscribe to my channel where I'll be making more fun Java projects like this. So thanks for watching.